All right, y'all, welcome back to the podcast, and thank you for joining us this evening. Heidi Nisbett is here with me right now, and we are going to be chatting with her and hearing all about her ordeal that she had when she was in Hot Springs, North Carolina. And needless to say, our mood is a little somber. Our hearts, minds, and prayers are with our friends right now in Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, Virginia area, all of these areas that have been impacted in the last week by Hurricane Helene. But I wanted to start off the episode with some positive news. If any of you listened to the latest podcast episode or live that we did last Sunday with Pete Beck, and Austin was on here with me, we talked about an organization that is based out of Greensboro, North Carolina, called Feed the Hunger, and they host Packathons. They work with various churches in the area, and they are currently working with the Asheville area, the Boone area. And I did go volunteer last night with Feed the Hunger. There were over 200 of us that met up in Greensboro at their corporate headquarters. And as you can see here on the screen, they still have more Packathon dates at their corporate headquarters in Greensboro, October, looks like the 8th, 9th, and they just added a new date on the 10th. And last night, y'all, there were over 200 of us. There was an amazing mood in the room. We packed meals last night from 6:30 to 8:30. And when the final call was made, they had announced that we packed 48,480 meals. And all of those meals right this second are in Asheville, North Carolina. Y'all, I cannot explain what it felt like last night to be in an assembly line. And I've got some pictures here to show you of what we did last night. We worked in an assembly line. There's Pete, there's Austin, and there's Austin with one of the packing packages. So the way this works is you work in this assembly line and you are literally packing dehydrated meals for 2 hours. And y'all, I hit the wrong picture. There we go. So there's part of the assembly line. It's dehydrated food, and it was on. I mean, we really didn't even have time to talk because you want to make sure you hit your place in the assembly line, whatever you were packing, whatever your role was. And we had a great time, and the mood in the room, it was amazing because they took the meals, they would put them in a box, they would put them on a pallet, and you could see right there that those meals were going right on a truck. And by the time we left last night, that truck was packed and it was headed to a church in the Biltmore area of Asheville. And y'all, to have that feeling, to know that we packed last evening 48,480 meals. It was a great feeling to leave with last night. The mood in the room was still, we were excited, we were amped, but everybody in Western North Carolina was still in our hearts, and that's never going away. So I wanted to put this on here before I talk to Heidi, because I'm going to give the floor to Heidi as soon as I turn this over. There are still dates available at Feed the Hunger. You can also donate. I noticed that the link was put in the chat. Let me see if I can find it here. There's the link. You guys, the Feed the Hunger organization is a real deal. And I'm telling you right now, if you have the opportunity to go, if you live anywhere close to Greensboro, North Carolina, and help them pack a meal, you will not regret it. So I wanted to follow up from last week's episode and last week's live with that information, because it was just absolutely incredible. And honestly, I don't have a lot of words right now for the event. Just to truly see something that you're doing physically for those of us that cannot be in Western North Carolina. The roads are closed. They don't want us in the area. They are actively still trying to help those in need. It felt really good to work and have something substantial to say about that. So there's still opportunity. You can still donate. And it's a great thing to do. So with that being said, I just wanted to give you guys an update and information on that. Tonight, I have Heidi Nisbett on the show, and Heidi is one of our, how will I introduce Heidi? One of our OGs of the show. For those of you that have been listening for a long time, Heidi was on episode number 4.5. Don't ask me why I did half numbers back in 2019 when I interviewed Heidi. We've known each other for over 5 years now. We have worked on various projects together. Heidi was the artist that did our artistry, our thumbnails, our prints for Safe and Found. She has recently completed an artist in residency with the Allegheny Trail. Heidi, when I finally had you back on the Jester Section Hiker podcast, I had no idea that we would be meeting under these circumstances. So Heidi, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for contributing at the event that you were just talking about. I think that's awesome that you were able to find something that you could do in person. Because being out of the area, there's only so much that we can do until they are welcoming us back to volunteer in person. So thank you for finding that.
Yeah. It felt so good to be physically doing something, because I think our nature is just get in the car and drive, to the closest area where we can start helping. And really, that's not what we need to do. That's not what they want us to do. So we are going to adhere to that. And Heidi, I have you on because you were actually in Hot Springs, North Carolina during Hurricane Helene. And I think your story starts, well, not only were you there, you were actually on a guiding trip prior to that with the Blue Ridge Hiking Company. So again, welcome back to the show. And the reason I wanted to have you on is because I think people want to hear something. They want to hear good news. They want to hear things that are going on, and they want to hear accounts of, what happened. And we all love Hot Springs, North Carolina, whether you're a hiker, an outdoor enthusiast, a kayaker. So Heidi, I'm going to turn the floor over to you and kind of start us off, I guess, midweek last week, maybe on your hiking trip and what was going on and kind of what was going down.
I was guiding with Blue Ridge Hiking Company. We're doing a week-long backpacking trip through the Smokies. It was all 75 miles of the Appalachian Trail going southbound. And it was a lovely trip. I mean, we had great weather for the whole first part of it. And we were supposed to finish on Thursday, but on Tuesday, we got some rain and we got into the shelter and cooked our meals and went to bed. And another group of women came in a little bit later, and they were telling us that the weather forecast was very severe. And I had a client who was from Florida, so she was talking about her family, and we knew that there was a hurricane coming in, and we were very concerned for what was going on back in Florida, because that's who you worry about when hurricanes come in. So this person who came into the shelter kind of, made me second guess, like, okay, we knew we were going to hike in the rain all day tomorrow, but what, and then we were supposed to finish our trip on Thursday, like Thursday afternoon. We had a 10-mile day on Thursday. And then in the middle of the night, I had one bar of service up there. I couldn't really get a forecast to really know. And you know how trail can be, like, there's fear mongering. I don't know the people who are telling me this, so I don't know where they're getting their information and what their tolerance is. But I talked to my clients, and we were going to finish the trip. They were gung ho. They said, we don't care if we're getting rained on. Like, we really want to finish this. But I got a text from my boss also warning me of the weather. And she kind of left it up to me what I wanted to do. And I called her the next day and I said, I don't have enough information in front of me to make an informed decision. Like, I can get a phone call out and a text out, but I can't see the forecast. And she made the executive decision for me. She's like, I would like pull your trip. And I'm so glad that she did. And actually, one of our concerns was really just having our shuttle driver come and pick us up on Thursday if it was really supposed to be that bad. So we got back to Hot Springs on Wednesday. We went out to eat at Spring Creek Tavern, which, if you've seen any pictures and Hot Springs, is like barely there at this point. So we had a lovely last meal there. And then my clients the next morning on Thursday morning, they all left rather early, and I was cleaning gear and doing my job and doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And our caretaker at the bunkhouse in Hot Springs was like, "What's our plan for this?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, it's just supposed to rain." And then we start looking at the numbers and some of the predictions, and what ended up happening far surpassed those predictions. And so we evaluated a lot of different options. We talked about going, here's the important part. I come back, and after this like full day of storming and, rain and stuff, I have a significant like crack in my windshield. Like I have 4 cracks the whole length of the windshield down. And I'm like Googling it, like, you're not really supposed to drive like that, especially in the pouring rain with the windshield wipers going. So I feel a little bit stranded. We have a company car, know that I can utilize that to prioritize my safety. And I'm also supposed to go to Canoli Fest, which is out in Alabama, but home is in the opposite direction. So I'm like, I don't know, do I go to Charlotte? Do I go to Alabama a day early? Or do I stay in Hot Springs? Or do I go to a friend's house in Asheville? Or do we go get a hotel in Greenville, Tennessee? So we were evaluating all of these options. And
I think at one point I sent you a text. I can't remember if that was Thursday evening or Friday morning. I was like, hey, Heidi, are you going to Packathon Fest? And then you told me about your windshield, and you were like, I'm not going to be able to get this fixed. And, we had this whole crew of us, kind of heading down to Packathon Fest from Charlotte. And I'm on the phone with Kim and Nathan. I'm like, yeah, we're going to wait till like 11:30, 12 o'clock. The storm will pass. The sun will come out, and we'll head down to Alabama. And it seems ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous that I was thinking that. At some point, I remember texting you, and I was like, I can't remember if I said, are you coming? Or I can't remember. Oh, I said, are you okay? Because we started seeing the signs on the highway, all roads in Western North Carolina are closed. And we were like, what?
Yeah, I don't remember when you texted me. I know Melinda Irby was texting me, and I was texting with, Kim and Nathan and a handful of other people. And I thought the obstacle was just going to be driving without my windshield, like if I could get my windshield fixed or not. I really anticipated, I don't think it was that crazy. We all anticipated just like, okay, we're going to have a storm. Maybe we lose power for 24, 48 hours. Maybe there's like a little bit of flooding. The prediction for the French Broad River in Hot Springs, I think, was saying like 19 feet, which wouldn't have even surpassed the bridge. And it ended up becoming as high as the bridge, if not higher. And like, we've seen the pictures of Hot Springs, the doors like to the businesses were flooded with water 4 or 5 feet up from the ground. So it far surpassed all the predictions. We actually went, my friend, the caretaker at the bunkhouse, went into town and talked to the locals there and said, like, what are we worried? And they're like, no, we're not worried. We lived here forever. We lived here in the flood in 2004 and back in the hurricane of 2021. I think there was a bad one, and it's never gotten past the bridge. So we were going to stay in Hot Springs, and my only concern was really that our bunkhouse is a trailer. And it's at the bottom of this mountain, and there's trees, and, so a tree could fall, or there could be some mudslide, landslide complications.
Yeah. And if any of you have ever walked north on the Appalachian Trail, you come down off the mountain and you literally walk by the trailer. So you've walked by it. You may not know you have, but all of you that have section hiked or through hiked or even day hiked in that area, you definitely have seen the trailer.
Right. So it's right where that, where you cross the road after you come down that steep hill, and there's the crosswalk, and we're right there. So Tracy and I took shifts throughout the night. We decided to set our alarms for like midnight and 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. to just like kind of check on the scenario. And we, at 4 a.m., my phone went off with the the loud beeping in your ear of flash flood warnings. And I was like, let's go ahead and do something about this. And so I went to the elementary school in Hot Springs because we'd seen on the Facebook page that was going to be an emergency shelter, but it was a staging area for an emergency shelter. It is now currently an emergency shelter, but I got up there and there was nobody there. Came down. We talked about it for a little bit, but I think it was about 5:30 in the morning.
So is this Saturday morning?
No, this is Friday morning.
Friday morning. Okay.
Friday morning, I said, I'm going to go. Because this is when I think the winds were supposed to pick up, and the hurricane was, or I think it did get downgraded to a tropical storm, was supposed to be hitting North Carolina. So just before the winds picked up, I just wanted to be out of the trailer. So I drove, the 45 minutes with the broken windshield to the, not 45 minutes, half an hour, less than a half an hour, to the Madison County emergency shelter, which was Madison County High School.
So when you left Hot Springs, did you go drive down through the middle of town?
Yes, and I could see the river, and it was still lower. It didn't crest. It didn't crest until Saturday, later on Saturday, but the flooding did not start until later on Friday.
Okay.
So it wasn't in anticipation of flooding really that I left.
Well, that's the thing. That's what we're used to. I mean, we're used to that here in Charlotte. Like high winds, storms, you're used to all that in the mountains. Like the last thing you want, like you said, is a tree. But I don't know if did the water ever cross your mind?
Not so much, because I was able to do a little bit of research, and I was able to see what the predictions were. I was able to see a live survey of what the water levels were currently at, and could see what they were in 2004 when the town didn't flood. So we really weren't worried about flooding. Like Hot Springs is a flood zone or flood plain or whatever. So it definitely could have happened, but that was a way lower priority. So I left, and then Tracy left an hour later. We took a bunch of emergency supplies. I mean, I had just come from a backpacking trip, so I had all of my stuff. I snagged a few extra meals from our bunkhouse, and I'm incredibly grateful I had all of that stuff. I got to the shelter. I was the only one there. There was one other person there, and then like 10 volunteers. Tracy got there, and then it was just me and Tracy and this one other guy, and we slept through the worst of the storm, which I woke up and poked my head out. It didn't look too crazy. But then by about 5 or 6 o'clock, over 150 people streamed in within an hour. And they had all been a lot of them ended up stranded without gas. That's how they ended up there. They were driving around. They were going from 26, trying to get to 40, trying to get to 240. And they just kept getting turned around and turned around and turned around. And this is when the water is then coming over the bridges in Hot Springs and in Asheville. So that's why all the roads are closed. So all these people stream into the shelter all at once. I'm thankful that I have my own food, my own sleeping pad, so I don't have to utilize any of their resources. I have my own camp stove, and I had my Garmin, which wasn't relevant on Friday. On Friday, we had service. No. Friday, we had service until about 2 or 3 o'clock, and then we lost service. And then all these people start streaming in at like 5 or 6 o'clock. And then it's all just, gossip. Like we don't actually know. We have no idea what's going on. And there's people coming in. I mean, the woman who set up her cot next to where I was sleeping was like, her whole house got washed away, and she was in it.
Oh my gosh.
But she had to break out the back window. She had her 2 dogs with her and a duffel bag of soaking wet clothes. She had nothing else, and she was even talking about this house has been in my family for years. Like, it's never been flooded. That's why I didn't evacuate. Like I didn't need to evacuate. We didn't anticipate it being what it was. And so she had to break out her back window, and she just kept saying, she's like, but I got my girls. All she had was a duffel bag of clothes that were soaking wet and a framed picture of her mother.
Oh
and that's what
gosh.
She took as she left. And she said, everything's gone. She said, my truck's gone and my home is gone. I don't have anything.
What are you thinking at this point? I mean, people are trickling in, and obviously you're starting to, hear stories from people, like this woman breaking out of her window. Is it just chaotic, or is it calm, or what's the mood in the shelter?
It's surprisingly calm. There's a handful of kids, and it was, sweet seeing, some presumably strangers just like hanging out and playing ball with the kids. There's a lot of people are just kind of laying around and sleeping. There's a lot of sharing these stories like, oh, when we got to 26, it looked like this. And when we got here, it looked like this. So there was like conversation. It was like really echoey because it was in a gym. So I put in my noise canceling headphones and tried to I was just kind of getting a headache. I was very concerned for my family here in Charlotte because, we really had no way of knowing who was going to get hit really hard where. And my parents live on Lake Wylie. And so I'm losing service, and I'm like, wait, is my parents home okay? Like they're right up against the water down there, and what's going on back at home? And so thankfully I had my Garmin, and I was able to send text messages out and make sure that all of my people were okay and let them know that I was okay. And then later I find out that the shelter was actually taking down people's names and phone numbers and their emergency contact numbers so that they could radio that information to a different shelter so that shelter could then get that information out just to say this person is safe. Like going through all of that just to say so-and-so is not dead right now. And I have a Garmin in my hand, I can pull a weather forecast. I can text anybody in my contact list. So I was incredibly grateful for that. I let a few other people send messages off of my Garmin as well, just because I knew that was, it's like you've got somebody somewhere worried about you. And so
another reason to have a Garmin. Who knew?
It's just against the other people in the shelter. I happened to come from a backpacking trip. I had all of my stuff in my car. We happened to come from a backpacking bunkhouse. So we were just like, yeah, let's grab a bunch of good to go meals and a camp stove and a headlamp and some extra batteries. But we had everything to be self-sufficient. I just needed a place with a roof, and that wasn't in a floodplain. And so I'm glad that we had what we had and we were able to just save a few more resources. At some point, I think it was Saturday, I saw the sign in the bathroom that said, do not drink the tap water. Like water has been compromised. And I'm like, well, I have my water filter. And when I left on Saturday, I was able to leave on Saturday. They had 10 bottles of water left in the shelter. And they had 150 or 200 people there.
So you made the decision to leave. At this point, do you know that the major interstates are affected? There's landslides, I-40, I-26. How are you deciding what route you're going to take because you live in Charlotte?
Yeah, I had to get through Asheville to get here. I knew on Friday before we lost service that Hot Springs was underwater. So I had an idea of what was going on. And then it was all gossip. And then Saturday, the police told us around 2:00 that I-26 was open down into South Carolina. The other thing I had was an atlas in my car, and I know how to get from Asheville to Charlotte. But even before that, like we were looking at it to see what the other routes were because we were hearing rumors that you could get to Greenville, Tennessee. I've never been to Greenville, Tennessee. So we're like looking at the atlas to figure out where we can go because we don't have service. And so I left when I found that out. And and then Tracy ended up following me a few hours later. I told her to come to my house if she needed it. She doesn't have to ask. Obviously she can't, so just if she decided that was the best option, then she needed to come. I had a guest room for her and she arrived at my house about 2 hours after I did. So
after you leave and get home, when did you know that Hot Springs was underwater pretty much in the restaurant you ate at the night before? Like, when did you start learning these things?
Well, I drove through Asheville. So I drove over the French Broad and the River Arts District. And I probably should have pulled over. I was crying so hard. I didn't want to because it didn't feel safe. I mean, that really shook me to see that level of destruction. And the river hadn't even crested yet. It was still rising. And you can just see, I see places that, and I don't even live, this isn't even my home. This is my home away from home. This isn't like I have a connection there, but not nearly as deep as the people who are living there. And to drive past and see the shops that sell my stickers and the places that I bought my backpacking gear and, art studios who I know the artists personally. And just to see all of that, as you're driving over the interstate down below, it was completely jarring. And I can't imagine what the people who are living there who are seeing this every single day and seeing all the aftermath after the water receded. I was trying to listen to the radio while I was in Madison County, and just none of the broadcasters were able to make it to the radio station, so there wasn't a whole lot of information. Once I get into South Carolina, I'm starting to pick up more information on the radio. So I'm hearing a little bit more. I'm seeing the lines for gas, and I have a half a tank. I'm just hoping that it gets me home, and it did, and hoping that the windshield doesn't shatter in my face, and it didn't. And I made it home, and that's when I was able to kind of start to see some of the pictures. I don't think a lot of them were out because so many people in Western North Carolina didn't have service. And that's why, when I talked to my family and when I talked to other people that day, I'm like kind of in shock, and they're just like, oh gosh, we lost power. And I'm like, you guys don't know and they didn't know. Nobody knew what was going on because these pictures weren't getting out because hardly anybody was making that transition to a place where they could send the pictures out. So it was really about 24 hours until I started to have a better understanding of what had happened and what was what was still happening and what is still happening. And I've noticed that with like now talking to like my friends who live in Asheville who, have been there for several days and then, just now leaving. I had a friend come by on her way to her parents' house earlier this week. And I mean, she just had that sort of like 1,000-yard stare and looked in shock and I think was very, I don't know, I've just heard from other friends that it's just been very overwhelming after they've left to not actually have understood, even though they're there, they just know their neighborhood and what they can walk to. And then they get out and they see all the pictures and it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I say I cannot imagine, but we all cannot imagine. And I've been getting some text messages from people that live in communities around Boone, and they're friends of mine. And Stephanie says, have a drink of that beer. She put a comment in there. And, I don't think I'm having a hard time texting them back because I'm not sure what they know because there's no service. So I'm trying to be very careful. Like, I'm just saying, are you okay? Help is coming. We don't know when, there's no timelines of when power will be back on or, and I'm looking on Google Maps, like streets around them are like decimated. And it's like, I don't know what to do. And, I'm like having to be coached through what to say to people. And they're your loved ones, they're your friends. And it's like, my goodness. I mean, some people, they're stuck in communities. They're fine. They don't have power, but they can't get out because like the main road to their community and just like you saw, and, people that have fled the area may not know what it looks like. I know people are looking at drone footage and things like that, but it seems chaotic. Do you feel like that?
It feels very chaotic. It feels really hard to know what to do. It's like donate. Obviously, that was the first thing that I did. But there's so many funds going around. How do you even decide who you're going to donate to? And then, I did. And then it's like, okay, well, I don't, I'm somewhat impacted. Like, I'm not going to be nearly as impacted by this, but I do work up there, right? So it's just like, I only have so much money that I can donate. What else can I do that doesn't involve writing a paycheck?
You're also mentally impacted, visually impacted. You are impacted.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Not on the level. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's just like I'm in my home that is standing and that had power the whole time. It's like I'm fine. I'm sad, but I am fine, and other people are not fine. And I want to. You were talking about this with the volunteer event that you did. That I want to physically help. I'm finding some opportunities online that are saying that they are bringing in volunteers, and volunteers are coming in, but like you have to take the appropriate avenues. And I just got a text message from a friend saying that a lot of volunteers were actually turned away today. And the whole thing feels chaotic and unorganized from afar. It's all of these different organizations, all of these smaller things. And it seems like one person doesn't know. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I'm seeing a lot of pictures and a lot of positive feedback that things are getting distributed and people are getting fed and all of this is great. But it just doesn't feel like I can't even find, do we go or do we not go? Like I can't even formally find that information because I'm getting contradicting information. It feels a lot like the early days of COVID. And it's, it's fun living through two traumatic, life-changing, like historical events in a 4-year period. And it's interesting how many similarities there are between the two. So anyways, all this to say, I do think that there's a lot of really great efforts going on. And as we've gotten into a full week now, I'm starting to see more and more of the same organizations' names popping up that you can tell that these are the people that are really, they're doing a whole lot. Beloved Asheville is one of the ones that I've seen a lot and consistently, and I'm seeing a lot of pictures and information about what they're doing. So that's definitely one that I would recommend and that my friends have recommended to me
let's go back
to follow
and talk about. I interrupted you before and asked a question, but you were talking about your livelihood, your job. And part of that is, you've been a hiking guide for Blue Ridge Hiking Company. And if you don't mind, talk about that because, Blue Ridge Hiking Company now needs help because they need to stay in business and they need their employees. So can you talk about what's going on there?
Asheville and so many of these small communities in this area are so the reason we love them so much is that there's not all these chain businesses. It's all small businesses. I remember visiting Asheville when I was a kid, and we noticed the only chain restaurant we saw was a Subway in the whole city. So these are all family businesses, small businesses that are going to be, they don't have a corporate behind them to support them through this. So they have to make it through this or we lose so much of the soul of these places. Blue Ridge Hiking Company has been around for like 15 or 16 years. It was started by Jennifer Farr Davis and is currently owned by Lindsay Barr, who's been working there for, I think, 6 or 7 years now. And October is our biggest month. We have several guides that are dependent on that work as pretty much their full-time income. I am lucky in this scenario where this is not my full-time job and I have other forms of income, but this drastically impacts a lot of our guides and the business as the whole and everything it needs to run and to run through the winter as well. So they're doing a GoFundMe where they're going to raise funds to make sure that our employees are compensated, especially our employees that were most dramatically impacted. We have guides that have their houses are destroyed. Thankfully, that we've all been accounted for. I heard that everybody has checked in, so we know that all of our guides are safe. But all of our, it's just going to have such a drastic, like long-term impact on people's lives to lose the income, and just really want to see them land on their feet and see the business land on their feet, and that we can come back next season and guide and not be as impacted and continue to bring people into the mountains and show them how to safely explore and backpack and how to leave no trace and teach all of the things that we've been teaching for 16 years now.
Yeah, I mean that breaks my heart as well. It's almost like every time I go to social media, it's just another thing. It seems like, different supplies are needed or this is needed now because nobody knows. So nobody knows what to anticipate. And it's got to be, so Lindsay and her family are okay, but they're not okay at the same time because their livelihood and the livelihood of all the guides. So we have put up the GoFundMe on the screen. It is also in the chat. We also have added Beloved Asheville that you talked about. And again, like Heidi was saying, it's, there's just a lot of stuff out there now. I don't want people to become overwhelmed to where it's like, okay, I just can't look at this stuff, which is why I want to continue to have these episodes because I feel like people, can trust avenues maybe that we go down. We're not going to put anything out there that we haven't done our research on. So I know you have a couple more because in the description of this live stream right now, I have put all the links that Heidi gave me. I don't know if you want to go over some more.
We'll see if I remember what I sent you. I know that there are several donation centers throughout Charlotte. So that was some of the information that I shared on our Trail Talk page and on my personal page, just to make sure that you know where you can go locally. I mean, it's not just Charlotte. It's all of, I'm sure every county in North Carolina and our neighboring states have a donation center. So that way you can contribute and then somebody else can take care of taking that in for you rather than congesting the roadways that are already going through a lot right now with all of the closures.
I just put up the Friends of Hot Springs Library. I just put that one up there.
So that was another one that I've just seen through the Hot Springs Facebook page. That was a great source of information as we were trying to figure out how to navigate the situation. And I think that there's going to be a unique situation with a lot of these smaller towns because everybody thinks Asheville, and Asheville has been severely impacted. And Asheville has a lot of people, and Asheville needs our help. But there are so many of these smaller towns that I don't know. I'm not a professional. I don't know how disaster relief goes, but I can just see them kind of getting a little bit forgotten. Their population is so small, but at any given time during the 6 warmest months of the year, there's just as many people in Hot Springs that don't live there as do live there. So it's easy to overlook it because its population is so small, but they are built to host tourists. And anybody who has ever been to one of these towns needs to take a degree of ownership, because even Asheville is a town where the population doesn't reflect how many people are actually in the city at any given day. And so making sure that, we take ownership. If it's someplace you ever visited and enjoyed and had a good time and you want to go back, like it's our responsibility. It's not the people who live there. It's everybody who goes and visits responsibility to make sure that they land on their feet.
Well said.
The link, thank you. The link that is in there goes directly to the Hot Springs Library. And so that is for Hot Springs to then determine how they want to spend their money within Hot Springs. And so it's not going through a lot of bureaucracy or other avenues. It's going to go directly to that town.
Yeah. And so now that you're back home, what is your thought process now, like a week later? Because I know you're back to work a little bit. You're working on another mural. I know that you are hosting the Trail Talk Charlotte again, and you all have an Instagram. And I see here we also put that in the chat so people can follow you on that Instagram. And you guys, anything that we've talked about will be in the description of the video. If you're listening to the audio version, it'll be in the show notes. You can find all of this information. Heidi, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know this is emotional, but share with us where you are now.
I went back to work. I had the opportunity to delay it, but I felt like I had done what I could do for now. And I'm thankful to have a flexible schedule. And I hope that I have the opportunity to do something in person. I mean, just to make myself feel better as much as it is for the actual work that will get done. I don't know. Like I was definitely in a weird state of shock for a few days. I'm thankful to have this mural project because it gets me off of my phone. It's just like, I'll take my lunch break and look at 5 pictures and just feel really overwhelmed. I don't know, like I was feeling better for a day or two. And then like today I was just like talking to my mom while I was painting and just started crying. So I don't know. I think it's going to be something that lingers for a while. And I just am eager for opportunities to keep helping. And I've also been very like touched to see how many clients of mine who live across the country, former clients, hiking clients are reaching out and making sure I'm okay, making sure the team's okay and contributing where they can. And so it's been really heartwarming to see the communities come together. I don't know. I still feel a bit shaken up and just heartbroken, just completely heartbroken.
Well, I don't think there's any more to say, quite honestly. I think you've given everybody a very true story and heartfelt story of something that you experienced. And I just want to say again, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing with all of us. And I want to put the date on here. Today is Friday, October the 4th. And the reason I'm putting the date on here is because things are changing by the hour. Where to donate, what supplies are needed. And it's very, very hard to keep up with all of it. And every time you open your phone and go on social media, things are updating, things are changing. But I just want to continue to share as much as I can. Y'all, Western North Carolina, we need your prayers. The individuals, the families that have been there for generations need your prayers. And so Heidi, you are in my thoughts, you're in my prayers, you're in my heart, and the listener's heart as well. And I just can't think of anything else. And I think all of this just needs to sit with all of us, and we all need to do what we can. And probably right now is, if you do not live in those areas and you cannot help directly, Feed the Hunger is a great organization. There's really good links in the description below. And donate, and don't forget. And I don't want this to be gone a week from now, because it's not over. It's not going to be over for months. So Heidi, thank you again.
Thank you so much. Can I throw one more thing in?
Absolutely.
I'm doing a sale on my website where 100% of proceeds of all of my Blue Ridge Parkway and Appalachian Trail prints are going to Blue Ridge Hiking Company's GoFundMe. I know a lot of people have already donated, but if you also need Christmas presents and are looking for a way to make that, then they're just and I know other artists who are doing the same thing. So even after you have donated what you can as a donation, just if you can find these avenues where the money that you were going to spend anyways can be beneficial, there's one opportunity for you. And I'm sure that several more will make an appearance.
Yes. And I know we have your link in the chat somewhere. I want to pop it back up on the screen if I can find it. Yeah, y'all, Heidi has a lot of artwork on her website. Please buy some prints of the area, and please buy some prints for Christmas. And keep the money coming if you want to know how to do that. I'm just no longer going to feel bad about asking for money, period. So we can't. I mean, we just can't. That's just the way it is. So once again, Heidi, thank you very much. Don't go anywhere. Y'all, be safe out there. Pray for Western North Carolina and do what you can, and appreciate y'all coming tonight. Take care, and we'll be back soon.
Thank you.